Hi, my name is Audrey Warren, and this is my informative speech for the public speaking course. Here are my notes. This is my visual aid, and then this is my audience. I do have one on FaceTime, and then here you go, Eddie. Depression is a worldwide illness that can happen to anyone, so it is an important topic for us to talk and learn about. Many people have depression, but there hasn't always been information readily available. The main points I will be going over today is what is depression, the difference between depression and grief, things that can lead to or cause depression, and then treatment. So let's start off with what is depression. Depression is a common and serious medical illness that can negatively affect the way that you feel, think, and act. There are many different types of depression, including clinical depression, or it is also known as major depression. It is characterized by an inescapable and ongoing low mood. The criteria to be met for clinical depression or major depression is that you have to have symptoms every day for at least 2 weeks. The next type of depression would be postpartum depression, which is what you receive after you have a baby. And this can last anywhere from 2 weeks to up to a year. The next one would be persistent depressive disorder. And while this type of depression is mild, it is long-term. Our last type of depression would be psychotic depression. Now this one causes you to experience psychotic symptoms and plus the hopelessness that you feel with depression. Some symptoms would be seeing, hearing, smelling, or even believing things that aren't actually there. It's scary because this can lead people to become suicidal because they believe that what they are seeing is real. Some symptoms or signs of depression would be mood or behavioral changes, including angry outbursts, twitching, frustration, feelings of sadness or emptiness. There will also be sleep changes, including lack of sleep or an excessive amount of sleep. The last one would be food habits. So people will usually have a reduced appetite, leading to a loss of weight. Some people will also experience suicidal thoughts or attempts. Now let's talk about the difference between depression and grief. A lot of people struggle to tell the difference between these two as they are very similar. But grief is what you feel after the loss of someone or something very important to you. It is common to feel grief, and grieving is a natural and unique process to each person. But some of the same features are very similar to depression, including the intense sadness and withdrawal from people and activities. But in grief, painful feelings come in waves, often intermixed with positive memories of the deceased. But in major depression, mood or interests are decreased for 2 weeks or until you can get help or treatment. In grief, you still retain most of your self-esteem, where in depression, feelings of worthlessness and self-loathing are very prominent and common. My last point would be, in grief, thoughts of death may surface when thinking or fantasizing about joining your lost loved one. And whereas in depression, the thoughts of ending your life come due to the feeling of feeling worthless or undeserving of the life that you were given, and being unable to cope with the pain of depression. So there is quite a distinct difference between the two. So it is important to differentiate between these two because grief and sadness can co-occur, but when they co-occur, that grief is more intense than if they were separated. And knowing this difference can help you better get help and treatment. Now that we have talked about the difference between grief and depression, these are some of the things that can cause depression. So according to the University of Pennsylvania Press, in their book that they published, Depression, Causes and Treatment, your brain chemistry can actually lead to depression. Too little or too much of the brain chemical called neurotransmitters can change the chemicals in your brain and can lead to depression. The next one is actually your genetics. So if someone in your family has depression, it's more than likely that you will have it as well. The next one would be co-occurrence, because it's more likely to happen if you have other illnesses such as cancer, heart disease, Parkinson's disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, or hormonal disorders. Medications can also play into effect and cause depression because some side effects of medications have very negative outcomes, including medication, including depression. So if you do have some of these diseases or illnesses, you're more likely taking medication, which can cause depression. The last one would be your gender. So according to the Depression in Women by the British Journal of Psychiatry, about twice as many women experience depression than men. That is a 2-to-1 predominance. Here's what contributes to depression in women: menstruation, pregnancy, childbirth, menopause, postpartum, and the responsibilities we as women carry. Now that we have talked about and now understand more about depression, let's talk about how to get help. Getting help can be super scary, but there's 2 ways to get help: professionally and non-professionally. Professional help can be medication, counseling, or therapy, and then hospitalization. Non-professional help that you can seek would be help hotlines for depression or support groups. Support groups are great because you can join an online support group or in-person support group, like one in your community. This helps build a strong connection, and these people understand what it's like to be going through what you're going through. They have either already been there or are going through it with you. So it's nice to have someone that actually understands. Now to conclude, many people have depression, but there hasn't always been info readily available. So that is why I'm talking about what is depression, the difference between depression and grief, things that can lead or cause it, and then treatment. Mental health is important and should be talked about a lot more. Thank you. And then here is my audience again, the one on FaceTime, and then my notes.